When he left me 6 words in an empty closet, the silence felt almost polite. Don't wait for me. I'm done. No explanation, no goodbye, just absence, clean, deliberate. But silence can't hide a crime. 3 nights ago, I came home to a half-empty closet and a folded note waiting on the kitchen counter. No goodbye, just silence, heavy, deliberate silence, where promises used to live. Even the sky refused to stay quiet. Rain clawed at the windows like it was trying to warn me. I walked in juggling groceries, still thinking about dinner. The smell of rain clung to my coat, my heels echoed against the tiles, and the house stared back, too still, too clean. The note sat perfectly centered on the counter, like he wanted control even in his exit. His handwriting was neat. Always was. Neat men are dangerous. They tidy their mess before they make it. I opened it, expecting we need space, or I'll explain later. But I was wrong. Just 6 words. Don't wait for me. I'm done. And that was the moment the world went silent for good. I followed the trail to the bedroom. Half the closet gone. The air still carried his cologne, oakwood and arrogance. His razor was missing, his toothbrush gone. My pulse started to steady, not from calm but clarity. This wasn't a fight. It was an exit. I went to my parents' house the next morning, trying to find comfort. My mother was at the stove, humming. She only did that when she was preparing to scold someone. "Claire," she said without turning, "you've been calling people." His family phoned me. "They can lie, but I can't ask questions?" She faced me. "You don't understand how fragile reputation is." "You mean yours?" A long silence. My father's paper rustled. "He'll come back when he's ready." He took everything. My mother's voice softened. "You don't want to be that kind of woman." "What kind?" "The kind people talk about." I stood. "I already am." It was my brother, Ryan, who finally broke the pattern. "Check your accounts," he said. "What?" "Your bank account, joint savings." Now I logged in. Those few loading seconds felt like a lifetime being rewritten. Then the numbers appeared, 0, every cent gone. That was the moment my hands stopped shaking, because grief had just turned into suspicion. The silence that used to swallow me now answered to me. Every cent was gone. I refreshed the page once, twice, as if the screen might feel guilty, and put the money back. It didn't. "He didn't," I whispered. Ryan's voice came through. "He did." The air thinned around me. I didn't cry. I just stared at the numbers, waiting for them to explain themselves. That's when a new notification appeared. Subject: transfer of property assets confirmed. I wanted to scream, but instead, I simply nodded, said goodbye, walked out, and closed the door hard enough to make the walls remember. When I got home, the house felt smaller, the kind of small that only comes after truth. My phone flashed, 5 missed calls from an unknown number. Then a message appeared. "Claire, this is Grace. I think your husband forged your signature." My pulse jumped. I called back, but it went straight to voicemail. Another message arrived seconds later. "Check your email. Don't tell anyone yet." I opened my laptop. One new file. Power of attorney. _transfer.pdf. I clicked it, and there it was. My name, my signature, authorizing the transfer of everything we owned. Only it wasn't my handwriting. It was perfect. Too perfect. My chest tightened as I stared at the forgery, realizing he hadn't just betrayed me, he'd erased me on paper. I typed back, "Who are you? How do you know this?" No reply. Then one final message flickered onto the screen. "Meet me tomorrow at Cafe Harland. 3 p.m. Come alone. The message disappeared before I could screenshot it, like it was sent from one of those encrypted apps that erase themselves. I sat in the dark, the laptop light reflecting in the window like a warning. He was gone. His family was lying. My parents were complicit. And now a stranger held the truth. I didn't know if I could trust her. But her messages were the first thing that didn't sound like control or sympathy. They sounded like evidence. And when everyone else spoke in half-truths, evidence felt like honesty. The clock on the wall ticked softly in the silence. Only this time it didn't sound like time passing. It sounded like a countdown. People think revenge is loud, but sometimes it's just the sound of a woman finally speaking. Silence doesn't protect you. Truth does. His family lied. My parents blinked with the kind of shame that looks a lot like silence. And a stranger, Grace, held the one thing that made silence dangerous for them: the truth. The room around me kept time with the same wall clock that had ticked the night he left, but now the ticking felt less like time passing and more like a countdown I could hear in my bones. I didn't ask what I would do if my husband vanished and his family blamed me. I decided instead to keep moving. The next morning was bruised and gray, and I walked to Café Harland like someone going to meet a verdict. The place smelled of burnt espresso and secrets, perfect for what had to happen. I chose a corner table, watched umbrellas bob like small anonymous ghosts, and tried not to let the forged signature glow behind my eyelids like a scar. At exactly 3 she arrived. Late 30s, hair pinned up, coat that meant business. She sat without smiling and set a slim black folder between us like a judge opening a case file. She was Grace, former insider to the family's legal world, and the folder was a trap. She used to work for them until they buried her career for asking the wrong question. Helping me wasn't about mercy. It was about revenge done properly this time. His father's trust, she said, flat and small, is real. The terms are strict. As his legal spouse, you're entitled to half if transfers occurred before distribution. The word half landed like a blow. He'd left before the trust paid out so he could claim it all. He'd planned to erase me on paper. He had help, Grace added. Someone who knew the process. I didn't need to think long. Clara's name slid out of my mouth as if it had already been rehearsed. Grace's expression flickered. She'd expected as much. If you go to the police now, she warned, they'll bury you in legalese. His father's estate lawyer is the same firm I used to work for. Make the wrong move and they'll drown the evidence. Her plan was surgical. Stay quiet, gather proof, and then strike where it mattered: court and reputation. I nodded. A war started in me then, not the loud kind I was taught to fear, but the strategic one. For months I'd begged for crumbs of attention. Now I understood the distance had been construction. He'd been building an exit that erased me. That evening I felt the silence differently. It was no longer a cage, it was focus. I tore through drawers and envelopes, receipts, travel confirmations, a hotel booking from 6 months earlier under another name, until something heavier slid out from a stack of tax files. A small tarnished key labeled basement, spare safe. I held the small cold key, heavier than it should have been, and felt the shape of the next move. I went downstairs, each step echoing in the dark. The basement air clung to my skin, the kind of cold that remembers things. Boxes of old Christmas lights hid the safe like a secret the house didn't want me to find. The key slid in easily, too easily. The lock gave way with a click that almost sounded amused. Inside, the truth waited in silence. Stacks of receipts, an envelope of casino tokens, a second passport, and one sealed letter, addressed to Clara. My hands shook as I opened it. Clara, I need your help finalizing the trust transfer before the end of the month. If Claire asks questions, tell her it's just legal maintenance. Once the accounts are clear, I'll settle the rest abroad. Don't worry, you'll get your share. My mouth went dry. He hadn't just betrayed me, he'd negotiated me, turned our marriage into a transaction. Every kiss, every word, every I love you, all part of the balance sheet. I took photos of everything, the receipts, the forged passport, the letter, evidence of a life built on deceit. Then I saved the files to an external drive and hid it under the loose floorboard by my bed. Grace had said silence is strategy, and for the first time, I understood what that meant. But just as I turned to lock the safe, something shifted above me. I froze. For a second, I could have sworn someone was still there. But the house was empty, except for what it remembered. I waited, frozen, listening. The basement seemed to hold its own breath with me. After a long minute, I crept toward the stairs, every muscle coiled tight. When I pushed the door open, the house stared back, too still, too polite. Curtains swayed as if something unseen had just moved past them. The front door was locked, the windows were closed, but the air had changed. That feeling, that watching was back. I reached for my phone and texted Grace. I found something, a letter. It's worse than I thought. Her reply came fast. Good, keep it safe. Don't confront anyone yet. We'll build the case, a plan. Finally, I exhaled, but then headlights slid across the wall, bright, deliberate. A black sedan sat idling outside, its engine purring low. The driver didn't move, just watched. 5 minutes passed before the car rolled away, slow enough to be remembered. Whoever they weren't lost. They were waiting. For weeks I'd been reacting. Now I was orchestrating. The woman who waited was gone. The one who planned had taken her place. I was done being the quiet wife who mistook silence for grace. Grace and I built the plan piece by piece, our voices threading through late-night static. She mapped the architecture of the inheritance trust, showing me how he'd hidden behind legal smoke to make it look like I'd surrendered everything willingly. But we had what he didn't count on, his letter to Clara, the forged signature, the transfer timestamps, each one a confession dressed as paperwork. Claire, Grace said one night, calm but absolute, don't accuse, let them reveal themselves. The moment you point a finger, they'll hide the evidence. Clarity isn't peace, Claire. It's a weapon, if you know how to use it. So I did. In the days that followed, I could feel them tightening their circle. His mother stopped answering, his cousins, his friends, all suddenly polite, distant, like someone had sent a memo. When I checked the old transfers again, one destination account looked familiar. Initials CW, the same as Clara Winters. They knew I was digging. They just didn't know how much. By the next morning, I realized she'd already looped in my parents. Clara wasn't only inviting me, she was staging me. And of course, it would be at my parents' house. That way, it would look like family, not confrontation. So when the phone rang, I already knew who it would be. Darling, why don't you come to the family brunch tomorrow? Your parents will be there too. Let's talk like civilized people, civilized. The word liars use when they're afraid the truth might raise its voice. I smiled into the receiver. Of course, Clara. I'll be there. After the call, I texted Grace. Tomorrow, family brunch. Everyone will be there. Her reply was immediate. Good, bring the recorder. Let them talk. That night, I barely slept. The rain had become my new pulse, steady, patient, relentless. By morning, I wasn't anxious anymore. I was ready. The brunch was at my parents' house, the temple of reputation and restraint. The air smelled like pancakes and tension. My mother greeted me with the same brittle warmth she reserved for family photographs. Claire, you look pale. Try not to look so sad. People notice at the table. Clara sat poised, stirring her tea with quiet arrogance. Beside her, a man I didn't recognize, Ethan's family lawyer. My father at the head, expression carved from stone. Claire, Clara began, that polished smile never faltering. We're all very concerned about you. I took my seat. That's kind of you. She gestured slightly toward the lawyer. Ethan's been under immense stress. The inheritance process is delicate. Maybe things were miscommunicated. I took a slow sip of coffee, my hand steady. The tiny mic Grace had clipped under my blouse pulsed like a second heartbeat. Miscommunicated, I repeated. Is that what you call draining our accounts and forging my name? The air froze. My father cleared his throat. Claire, lower your voice. That's when I saw it. He wasn't shocked. He was scared. You knew, I said softly. He looked down at his plate. Your husband helped me with a financial favor once. I thought he'd repay it fairly. Another debt. Another silence bought with shame. I turned back to Clara. You said this was delicate. Why don't you explain that? Her hand trembled slightly around her teacup. It's complicated legal work. The trust. His father's trust, I cut in. The one he didn't tell me about? Her smile faltered. You're mistaken. I reached into my purse and unfolded a printed letter, the one I'd found in the basement safe. Funny, I said, because he mentioned you by name. The color drained from her face. Where did you get that? You helped him steal everything from me, Clara. You told me it was routine paperwork. You knew exactly what he was doing. My mother's fork clattered onto her plate. Claire, stop this. You're humiliating yourself. No, I said, voice quiet but razor sharp. I'm done being humiliated. There's a kind of calm that comes right before a storm. I felt it then. I pulled out a second document, the PDF with my forged signature, and set it on the table. This is my name. Only it's not my handwriting, the lawyer's voice cracked. Mrs. Monroe, perhaps we can resolve this privately. Privately, I echoed, the same way you've been moving stolen assets privately. The air thickened. My father started to rise, but Ryan placed a hand on his shoulder. No, Dad. Let her finish, I faced Clara fully. You helped him transfer the trust offshore, didn't you? Her composure cracked. He made me do it, she whispered. I didn't have a choice. There it was, the fracture in her porcelain mask. Did he also make you lie to me? Tell my parents to silence me while you helped him rob me blind? Clara's lip trembled. You don't understand what he's capable of. I leaned closer. No, Clara. You don't understand what I'm capable of now. Then I stood. My voice didn't rise. It didn't have to. You all told me to stay quiet to protect his name. But today, it's over. I pulled out my phone, stopped the recording, and said softly, Grace says hello. The lawyer's face drained of color. Grace, Vale? Her last name doesn't matter, I replied. What matters is that she's already filed the motion. Fraud, forgery, inheritance manipulation. My father muttered something about dignity, but I barely heard him. The silence that had once suffocated me now belonged to them. Clara's voice cracked. He'll ruin you for this. I smiled, not out of joy, but finality. He already did. Now it's my turn. I gathered my things. My phone buzzed on the table. One new message from him. You shouldn't have done that. The room tilted slightly, my pulse steady. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. Because for the first time I had proof and power. That night, when I returned home, the front door was ajar. On the kitchen counter, exactly where his first note had been, lay a second one. You took what's mine. Now watch me take it back. Same paper, same handwriting, same arrogance. But this time I didn't tremble. I smiled, the kind of smile women wear when the game changes. Then I called Grace. He's back. Her voice didn't flinch. Then it's time. By the end of that week, Grace had filed every motion: fraud, forgery, inheritance manipulation, theft. Within 48 hours, his accounts were frozen. The precious trust fund he'd traded our marriage for now sat behind legal walls he couldn't scale. When the hearing came, he looked smaller than I remembered, pale, hollow, the color of a man watching his empire crumble. Grace stood beside me, composed as ever, reading the clause aloud. Because Mrs. Monroe remained the legal spouse during the transfers, 50% of all assets revert to her. He whispered, almost to himself, "You ruined me." I met his eyes. "No, Ethan, you ruined yourself the moment you left that note." Outside, the rain had finally stopped. Sunlight broke through the clouds, like the world had been waiting to exhale. I walked out of that courthouse holding papers that didn't just prove victory, they proved that silence is not dignity. That night, I went home, lit both his notes in the sink, and watched them burn. I poured myself coffee, black, bitter, the way he used to drink it. For the first time, I added sugar. Turns out, I never liked it his way. I just liked pretending peace had a taste. The first was betrayal. The second was arrogance. Together, they turned to ash, proof that revenge doesn't always scream. Sometimes it just signs its name neatly at the bottom of a court order. People think revenge is about destruction. It's not. It's reconstruction, brick by brick, truth by truth, until you recognize yourself again. When the judge's gavel hit the desk, it didn't sound like justice. It sounded like the silence finally breaking. I walked out of that courthouse with proof in my hands and ash on my heart. For the first time, the silence belonged to me, and somewhere in that quiet, I finally heard myself again.